There is an experiment so profoundly unsettling, its details were intentionally scrubbed, buried beneath layers of carefully crafted public relations and the sheer velocity of technological ambition. These aren't whispers from forgotten history books, but recent, deeply disturbing accounts from our modern age, shielded from public scrutiny. We're not talking about some Cold War monstrosity hidden in a bunker. This took place in plain sight, presented to the world as groundbreaking progress, yet the truth of its methodology, the raw suffering involved, was meticulously edited out. The promise was utopian. Direct neural interfaces, the merging of human and machine, a leap into a future where thought alone controls technology. But the path to that future, as often happens, was paved with immense, often invisible, ethical compromises. Imagine a mind, vibrant and complex, reduced to a testing ground. We're delving into the pioneering, yet morally fraught, world of brain-computer interface experiments, specifically those involving animal subjects. The sheer audacity of implanting thousands of microscopic threads directly into living brain tissue, designed to read and transmit electrical signals, was breathtaking. It was a vision of humanity evolving, upgrading its very cognitive framework. Yet, behind the slick presentations and grand pronouncements of a technological titan, a darker narrative began to emerge. It spoke of a different kind of progress, one measured not just in data points and bandwidth, but in pain, distress, and a profound disregard for sentient life. It wasn't the kind of story that sells stock or inspires wonder. It was the kind of story that, if truly known, would shock the conscience. One particular subject, known only as Animal 15, became a silent testament to this hidden cruelty. This creature, a pig, was part of a public demonstration, a show and tell, designed to awe and reassure. The images released were carefully selected, showcasing a seemingly content animal, its brain activity a marvel of science. But what the public didn't see, what was deliberately omitted from that curated narrative, were the struggles, the infections, the neurological damage inflicted during the implantation and subsequent monitoring. How do you erase the suffering of a living being? You don't. You simply control the spotlight, ensuring only certain angles are illuminated. For Animal 15, the implant itself was a significant invasive surgery, but the issues extended far beyond the initial procedure. The chronic inflammation, the potential for neurological impairment, the constant presence of foreign objects within the most delicate of organs, these were the unseen costs. Another case, Animal 13, a macaque monkey, paints an even more disturbing picture. This animal was also part of highly publicized events, shown supposedly interacting with a computer, using its mind to move a cursor. The world watched, captivated by the promise. But once again, the full story was kept out of public view. Reports that eventually surfaced, pieced together from internal documents, revealed an animal experiencing profound distress. This wasn't just discomfort, it was a downward spiral. The details suggested significant health problems directly attributable to the experimental procedures. Was it pain? Infection? Neurological complications that caused intense suffering? The specifics were locked away, but the pattern was clear. The public narrative focused on success, while the internal reality included a darker, more troubling set of outcomes for the subjects. Why such a stark contrast between what was presented and what was allegedly happening behind closed doors? The answer lies in the immense pressure to deliver, to innovate, to maintain investor confidence in a project pushing the very boundaries of scientific ethics. The stakes were monumental, and in such environments, inconvenient truths often become casualties. The very concept of erasing these records speaks to a conscious effort to control perception. It implies an understanding that the raw, unedited footage, the complete medical logs, the full extent of the animal's struggles, would be damaging. It would expose the grim underside of a utopian dream, force uncomfortable questions about the cost of progress, and perhaps even halt the experiment altogether. When organizations like the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine step forward, they aren't just raising an alarm. They are attempting to pull back the curtain on this deliberate obfuscation. Their reports are built from the fragments that escape, the details that slip through the cracks of secrecy, forcing a re-evaluation of the entire endeavor. They argue that the ethical lines were not just blurred, but actively crossed. Consider the identity trigger here. What if the drive for such monumental technological advancement leads us to dehumanize, or de-animalize, those who bear the brunt of early experimentation. What if the thrill of the potential future blinds us to the pain of the present? This isn't just about monkeys and pigs. It's about the moral compass of an entire species as we venture into uncharted scientific territory. The real tragedy isn't just the suffering of Animal 13 or Animal 15. It's the systemic nature of how such suffering was handled. It suggests an environment where the ends were seen to justify any means, where the ethical implications for the subjects were secondary to the achievement of technological milestones. And that, in itself, is a chilling precedent for what might come next. We are, after all, dealing with brain implants. The next step, the ultimate goal, is human application. If animal suffering was downplayed, if disturbing outcomes were carefully managed out of public view, what does that imply for the transparency and ethical oversight of future human trials? It raises a fundamental question about trust. This isn't to say that all scientific progress is inherently unethical, or that all animal research is without merit. But there's a profound difference between carefully managed, ethically robust research and experiments where the welfare of the subjects appears to have been consistently, perhaps even intentionally, compromised for the sake of accelerated development and public image. The narrative of erased records serves as a stark reminder that history is often written by the victors, or in this case, by those who control the narrative. But the unseen archive, the scraps of truth, the persistent voices of ethical concern, these are what ultimately reveal the true cost. They compel us to ask, what other disturbing truths are being carefully edited out of our collective understanding of progress? The ambition to merge biology with technology is immense, its potential truly transformative. But as we stand on the precipice of such a future, peering into these unseen archives, we must ask ourselves, at what cost do we pursue this future? And more importantly, who decides what truths are kept, and which are erased from our collective memory? Because if we allow suffering to be systematically concealed, then the price of progress becomes a burden we all eventually share.